Good morning, everyone. This is an interesting new normal. I appreciate you all joining us on Zoom. As most of you know, I'm a hugger. I would like to at least be in the same room as people. So this is all new to me. And as Patty will point out to you, I am the technically challenged one of this group. But bear with us as we move forward, and bear with Max, who might jump in at any point in time and contribute. I want to thank the staff, specifically Sherry, Lynn, Kathy, and Kelly, who did the prep work for this meeting. They will be running the behind the scenes stuff and got our Zoom deck ready, so I appreciate their efforts to do this. I remind you all that the minutes for this annual meeting, the draft, have been posted on our website under the annual, go to About Us, pull on the annual report tab, and you will see the minutes there. Please review them as we speak, just because we'll be calling for a vote after our guest speakers. I want to take a minute to not only welcome you all to this event, but to reflect on this last year. The first 8 months, things were doing very well. We had the full funding in the line item, which allowed for the $12 per elder, as well as the full funding of the SIG program, thanks to our support from the administration and from our chairs who are joining us today, Senator Pat Jalen and Representative Ruth Balzer, who chair the Elder Affairs, Joint Committee on Elder Affairs. We were able to secure full funding in that line item, which was appreciative and brought us additional funds to work. They also were able to get additional funding for our Elder Behavioral Health Network. And with the administration, we added 2 new projects that are up and running. And we have about 80 cities and towns now that are covered by that project. And we hope that we can see expansion of that after we get past this COVID recession. But again, I want to thank our legislative leadership and the administration for the guidance in those programs. But as we began that year, FY20, we were informed and had Donna Potkin go on medical leave. And she's, as many of you know, is having to deal with cancer. By the holidays, it was obvious she was not coming back. So she resigned her position from MCOA. And at that same time, Mary Kay Brown, who had been working with us from the beginning, also decided that she needed to spend more time with her mom, who was moving down the dementia spectrum. And she wanted to spend whatever quality time she had left with her mom. So we said goodbye to her as well. At that time, we were able to bring on 3 new folks. The third one being because of the focus that we were going to do with the nutrition insecurity that we had agreed to as members and endorsed by the Secretary of the Administration to work on nutrition insecurity. And that person was Tara Himes, who we stole from the Boston Commission, and she came to work for us under that rubric. We also had Susan Karp from Arlington and Kelly Burke from Northborough join our staff. This was probably the best candidate pool in my 27 years in the job that we received in terms of applicants. Had to make some tough choices, but we welcomed around the holidays Tara, Susan, and Kelly. We reorganized their portfolios. We started with the approval of the Secretary of the Administration, the additional SIG funding. A lot of it went to Dementia Friendly and to grant and to support the ACL grant that we had been leads on for the last couple of years. Some of it went to Age Friendly and Dementia Friendly support because those were major initiatives that we've all endorsed. Some helped out with some supplemental fundings for their elder mental health projects. We bought the Aging Mastery license, so all of you could use that. We brought the Brain Training Institute and the support materials that were needed for that. We did work in falls prevention and Live Your Life Well, Walk Boston. We funded assisted living devices and worked with the Mass Association of the Blind to bring in technology to our senior centers to help those populations that were underserved. We worked on bereavement support groups and caregiver support groups and grandparents raising grandchildren. Our initiative on Welcoming Place for All, which I'll discuss a little later, was up and running for the 4th year, I believe. We did work on consumer education and on housing issues. Our job seekers program was robust and expanded. We were working with ARP to even do more sites. We had a discovery center from Encore to work with transition navigators to be able to help older adults find those Encore careers. We did work on marketing. We worked with UMass to do a comprehensive and to update our comprehensive survey on the services and programs that are throughout our Commonwealth, so we could get you the information, who is doing similar programs, who is similar size. We developed more training manuals. We worked on director certification. We worked on the TRIPS program, which is a tool in the transportation portfolio. And we also helped towns with website hosting. So we are appreciative of that. A lot of our SIG funding that we receive helps pay for part or all of the staff that are on MCOA. We are now 10 full-time equivalents. Again, I want to thank the Secretary for helping us come to these decisions and recommendations, and the 2 chairs that are joining us today, just to say thank you for this additional funding. It has been a blessing during this time, this year, the first 8 months, and a specific blessing during this last 100 days. Then we started this time of COVID. And in this time of COVID, I can reflect now that we're about 100 days in, that I've never been prouder of this network. I've been on this job now since March 26, 1994, and the transformation that you all have made and the energy that you've brought to the table. Myself, I've been sitting in the corner rocking, but I do appreciate that all of you have stepped forward and are providing the quality of service and the type of services that you have as we've had to transform, evolve, and adapt our networks. The March 10th, I was actually up on Beacon Hill doing some lobbying. In fact, I think I saw Pat and Ruth in the State House that day. And the secretary called and said, "Can you come in?" And I went into her office in the next building over, and we started talking about COVID. It had been around. March 2nd, we actually had talked with the staff about the potential implications. But by March 10th, it was apparent that this was going to be a far greater than any of us had worried about, and that we were going to need to take extraordinary measures. Secretary Chen recommended the weekly meetings that are statewide, that are hosted by Carol and Betsy, to provide that answers to questions from around the state, so we could get timely information back and forth to you as quickly as we could. We instituted regular regional meetings as well within your ASAP regions or defined regions to bring in your peers to problem solve. These are interactive, so you all could participate on a regular basis on these. And I was excited to see some of the quality of work, problem solving that was happening. We established 3 task force. We taught you how to, and will continue to teach you how to use the Zoom features, not me and personally, obviously, but others around, to be able to transform your programming and activities that you were offering at your senior center online through the different formats that exist. And I'm excited about some of the work that is being done. We not only are looking to provide you the tools But we will also be looking to provide you some of that programming as we work with the State Access Channel to see how we can get programs out to those senior centers that don't have the capabilities of moving their programming online. So that task force is off and running, and I thank Susan M., Joanne, Patty, and others who are on this call today for all their efforts in making that happen. Again, we're talking 3 months, and we've transformed this network dramatically by individuals like those that I've cited and others around the network. We also wanted to move all of our professional developments work online. It was apparent that I did not want to get a group of people together who then may take something back to their senior centers, especially with travel bans and building closures. It was apparent that we closed down all of our training through right now through the winter holidays, which includes our fall conference. And I thank our professional development folks, Kathy and Kelly and Jody and Becky, and the rest of the team who've been working on those issues as well to provide you with adequate trainings, how to use Zoom, as well as how to increase your web presence, your using Facebook to get information out. That has all been an extraordinary win for our network, as those people have stepped up and provided you with the tools that make your job easier. And then the third task force was the more difficult task force, and that was the reopening, or what we're calling the reopening task force. And that was led by our president, Becky, assistant director, Betsy, with Susan C., Tara, and Patty, and others working on that. We also had 3 masters in public health candidates, Samara, Crystal, and Amy, who helped us make sure that the language we were using fit into the governor's executive orders and guidance from the CDC and for the Department of Public Health, and that those reopenings have been, that task force has produced documents that are on our coronavirus tab of our website. If you have not seen that yet, please go in there. There's a lot of important information that will help you as we proceed through the summer and we begin to develop those plans on how we're going to reopen our senior centers, or more importantly, scale back up is the term that we're trying to use more now, our services. As I pointed out, councils on aging have been open all along. Many of you might have gone home for the first couple of days, but it became apparent that we needed to continue the services to make sure that we were in it for the long term. So councils on aging picked up their Rolodexes and their laptops and went home, started making wellness checks, starting to make sure that home delivered meals were going out, establishing grab and goes for congregate programs, trying to figure out this online programming piece. So we continued as councils on aging, the staff of those councils on aging, to meet the needs of the 1.7 million older adults in our Commonwealth. But we just had to change from what we were doing, which really never changed. That was sort of the same. We continued to do the same things, but what we had to change was how we did it. And I credit Jane Colino for that language, because I think that that's the important thing. We were still doing what we did. We just had to change how we did it. So I thank all the folks that are working on that worked on all those task forces. We have one still going that is working on contact tracing, that is led by Patty, and Carol has stepped in from the administration to oversee and help with that, as well as our old friend Donna Popkin, who is getting restless at home, and she'll be joining that task force as well to be able to provide some guidance as we move forward on that concept of contact tracing, which is going to be critical as we reopen in case there is a re-outbreak. We're going to need to be able to close that center quickly and contact the individuals that may have been exposed so they go into self-quarantine. So that concept we're working on, we're trying to make it adaptable for our senior centers and the tools that we have. I want to take a quick minute then to go on to the purpose of what I would have been talking about at this focus anyway. But I grew up in college in Swarthmore, where Senator Jalen went a year or two ahead of me. And we were talking and debating what was called the engagement theory versus the disengagement theory of aging. I think this is critically important for COAs and senior centers to fully appreciate, because the disengagement theory, which was out there, basically said it was natural for older adults to disengage from society and become detached. And those of us who believed in the engagement theory of active aging, healthy aging, staying engaged, proposed the engagement theory that we actually started what we now call the senior center networks across the country. They grew out of New York City, where they first were developed. Back in the 50s and the 60s, we started them here in Massachusetts. By the 70s, we had a full court press to make sure that every municipality opened up a council on aging department within their cities and towns. Many of you went on to open up senior centers. This all grew out of, originally out of the park and rec departments and the golden age clubs, but we started to provide that social interaction, that engagement through those vehicles in every city and town in the Commonwealth. And as of today, 350 municipalities of the 351 have established a municipally based council on aging. And many of you, most of you operate a senior center, and a few of you even operate multiple senior centers. We formed as a network in 1979, and Lori Mellinger, Bobby Kamen, Martha Priblo set the stage for MCOA. When I took over 26 years ago, many of you remember the theme was, we're not just bingo anymore, as we tried to redefine our brand. We started working in healthy aging, first with blood pressure clinics that ended up being podiatry clinics, and then flu shots with our VNAs. Our senior centers became wellness centers. We pushed healthy aging. We invested in and invited in chronic disease self-management, evidence-based programs that have led to a whole host of offerings at our senior centers, including now falls prevention. We added in behavioral health because we found that it was important to not only work on the body, but to provide those supportive systems for those who were struggling with depression or chronic mental health issues or addiction-related issues. And most recently, we've started to work on the nutrition insecurity and layering that on, because it's vital that we make sure that our older adults are getting the nutritional services they need. We had also worked on economic security, and many of the studies that go back to the 1990s and before, we found that many older adults, and this is the work, I did some of it with Families USA Foundation, which is the Village Foundation, and Community Catalyst, that older adults were not getting their benefits. They lacked the knowledge, the confusing red tape. COAs stepped up and met that challenge and started to create a network of outreach workers, social workers, who provided detailed info and assistance with application. We assist with Prescription Advantage and Shine and benefits counseling. We did work with the benefits checkup, and all these had origins within this economic security movement that senior centers have embraced. And today we can see that in the work that is being done to increase the number of senior centers that offer DTA direct assistance to sign up for food stamps. We were also concerned about underserved populations, and we created that welcoming place. And we worked with UMass and the Multicultural Aging Project to create curriculums that many of you have taken. We've asked you during the 2010 census, even though that was the height of the Great Recession, to look at your census count to identify those populations that may not be coming into your senior center, and figure out ways that you could get those older adults the services they may need, and hopefully welcome them into our senior centers themselves. During the Baker's administration, the first term, we started working to develop with the Governor's Council and the plan that was put forward. And I shout out to the Tufts Health Plan Foundation for all their support, financial support, and technical guidance and convening of work groups to make this happen. But we worked on age-friendly and dementia-friendly. We worked on reframing aging. And these are success stories that we can look back on and be proud of the involvement of the COAs across our Commonwealth. Now we're in a different time, and part of it has to do with the convergence of several inflection points, several major storylines that are going to impact the way we deliver services. And this is presenting what I believe is the largest combined challenge during my tenure. The recent peaceful demonstrations in our streets have refocused America on the inequities and to pointing to some of the obsolete strategies that need to be recalibrated. I'm reminded of the three kids that are trying to look over the fence to see the baseball game, and the tall kid is able to look over. The medium-sized kid just barely can maybe get a glimpse of the game every now and then if he jumps up or stands on his tiptoes. And the third child, who is much shorter, cannot see over at all. The equality movement was to provide them each with a box, equal size box. And that box each kid stood on, and the taller kid could even get a better view. The medium-sized kid could see over the fence, but the short kid still was too short to be able to look over that fence. But the equity movement is to have the tall kid give the short kid his box, so that child stood on two boxes and was able to see the game as well. So all three individuals were able to see the game. The justice movement actually takes the fence down. So I want people to ponder that visual, because as we move forward in the next year or two, we're going to have to take a look at what is just, what is equitable. We can't look at the justice system and say, point to the inequities, or the medical system and point to the inequities, without looking at our own systems and how that we potentially could be creating barriers or problems for people who do not fit our normal attendees. So we're going to redouble our efforts on the welcoming place. We are going to look for ways and strategies to make sure older adults, all 1.7 million older adults, whether they're gay or straight, or people of color, people of different economic strategies, or whether they're men or women, they feel welcome in our senior centers. And we want to make sure that that happens in the next few years. And I ask you to join us in that effort. We had already talked to the Secretary about pledging to work on end-of-life issues this coming year. We might have to table that a little bit, but we really need to look at it, and especially in the light of COVID. We see COVID, my main fear all along has been that, you know, you feel good today, but you wake up tomorrow with a cough, and by the next day you're in the hospital on a ventilator. And all that last minute planning that, oh, make sure this gets done, or here's where my will is, or here's where my healthcare proxy is, or did I sign my MOLST? All of that needs to be back on the forefront of all of us older adults, to make sure that we have the necessary paperwork in place as we continue to deal with COVID over the next 12 and 24 months. So we are going to figure out how that fits into our schedule, take the Secretary up on her offer to work on that particular strategy, but we need to focus on end-of-life issues and make sure that older adults have the paperwork in place to cope with those issues, including the impact that COVID is having on our population. And then this whole concept around reopening. And I remind everybody that this is not a race. At best, it's a marathon. We're somewhere on climbing Heartbreak Hill at the moment. This is not the time to stop or to get relaxed. We need to continue to stay focused. The tools have been presented to you. They're online. I would ask you to review those, develop local teams, take your inventory of your senior centers, and figure out how we can gradually begin to scale back up the services that are offered at our senior centers. I do want to end on good news, and I'm excited to tell you that with the help of the Secretary and the administration, we've identified funds. So all COAs, the dues letter that you would get July 1st from MCOA asking you to contribute to help with all of these efforts will reflect a $0 balance. Just like during the Great Recession, when we were able to do this before, and we were able to identify funds to pay for your dues for that year, we have found the funds to pay for your FY21 dues. It is the quickest way for us to get money back into your local hands, whatever your dues were, whether it was the minimum or the maximum. You will now be able to repurpose those funds locally. So you will get a letter, you will get a bill statement, but that bill statement will say zero because of these funds we were able to identify. So I hope that that provides you with some modicum of help, because I know that we are difficult times on the local level. Again, I want to thank everyone who's been engaged and active, our board, the best staff I could ever hope for. Again, I remain optimistic as we continue to evolve, transform, and adapt our network. I want to introduce and turn this back over to our board president, Becky Moriarty. Hey, Beck, are you there somewhere?
I am just working on that mute, unmute thing.
Yeah, I can go mute now.
You can mute now, Dave. Thanks so much. Thanks, Dave. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you all in this very strange MCOA annual meeting, but welcome. I'm glad that you are here. It's a busy time for all of us, and so for there to be 78 people on this call, that speaks volumes to the network that we are. Thank you to the Secretary for being here today, Assistant Secretary Carol Malone, I see you there, Representative Balser and Senator Jalen as well, and to all of you, I just want to thank you for being here. I will definitely have more to say toward the end of this meeting, so without further ado, I want to introduce Secretary Chen, who is very familiar to our network. I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction because it's always nice to hear all of the wonderful things that Secretary Chen has done in her career. So the Secretary began in the private sector, and then early on she made a decision to go back to school for her master's in public health, which she obtained from Harvard University's T.H. Chan School of Public Health. She then continued in her education to receive her PhD in gerontology from the University of Massachusetts McCormick Graduate School of Policy and Global Studies. Prior to her joining the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, Secretary Chen served as the Assistant Commissioner of the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. And in that position, she was responsible for overseeing bureaus and programs that promote safety and quality health care for residents of the Commonwealth. Since June 3rd of 2019, Secretary Chen has been with us at the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. And might I say, what a year it has been this year. As we all know, Secretary Chen is a leader and a strong force at the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, and we are certainly blessed to have her in that role. Secretary Chen's background in public health and gerontology have certainly proven to be particularly helpful during this time of the coronavirus pandemic. So without further delay, it is my great pleasure to welcome Secretary Elizabeth Chen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so great to be with you. And yes, this is having Zoom meetings is our new normal. And I miss the energy of being in a room with you. But I really value the conversations that Dave, you and I continue to have. We just talked last night. I value the weekly meetings, and I get feedback from Carol on the weekly meetings that you all have had, and so these are challenging and unprecedented times, both in our state and across the nation. There's no question that the COAs and senior centers have been tested throughout this pandemic. And as we all know, COVID-19 has been particularly devastating to older adults and to their care providers. And so, while isolation is a critical strategy for containing virus spread, this practice has also meant that older adults are separated from friends and family more so than ever. And the feelings of loneliness, loss, and confusion may be even more present than pre-pandemic times. And so I am worried. I am worried about the impact of extended social isolation for older adults. I know that COAs have remained open while senior centers have been closed. And I want to thank you for continuing to deliver critical services. Thank you for pivoting and for finding ways to help older adults remain engaged and safe. So one of the things I've learned in my first year as secretary is that COAs know how to get things done, and that no matter what's happening, the town manager picks up the phone and calls the COA. What do I do now? And so that's what you have done. And you've done it under adverse circumstances. That skill, that resilience, that flexibility has been even more evident since COVID-19 arrived. You found new and creative ways to make sure that essential services such as nutrition, wellness checks, transportation services to medical appointments have not been interrupted, but you've adapted to make sure that people are safe. There are memory cafes with music performances on Zoom, buddy systems and intergenerational relationships that pair students with elders. There's even a happiness campaign where the upper and elementary and middle school students are making cards. They're at home too with nothing to do. And so they're making cards and they send them to elders in the community. I received one of those cards and that card made me smile. So it was great. Imagine what those cards are doing and have done for people who are at home living alone. In the western part of the state, COAs in Long Meadow, East Long Meadow, and Agawam are sharing your Facebook Live program with each other. You're co-hosting the event and promoting the events across the region. On the South Coast, COAs are partnering to produce joint programming on PAC TV. The centers are sharing programming costs and have created their own TV guide for seniors in the region. So I know there are other examples, and I apologize for not mentioning every example of your commitment to elders in these past few months. Now we are in warmer weather, and businesses are opening, gradually opening. And the warmer weather is a blessing as it allows us to do more while adhering to social distancing, including the use of face coverings. So the gardens outside of COAs are being planted by volunteers in groups of fewer than 10. Centers are considering holding some exercise classes outside, either on the center grounds or in the town center. I desperately need exercise myself, and I go out and walk, and so walking clubs are starting, and that's really wonderful. And so walking groups walking groups of 10 or less with social distancing and face coverings sound fabulous. And so yes, it is safer at home, but that's distinctly different from stay at home. And the virus is still here, as Dave said. And I ask that you keep some key principles in mind as we try to engage and as we develop ways to help older adults get out, I worry about the isolation. I worry about being inside for so long. And so there's some key principles that we all operate on. And just remember 6 feet of distance and face covering, fewer than 10 at a time. Avoid multiple hands on the same surface. Outside is better than inside. And keep a log of who participates in group activities for contact tracing. And then finally, sanitize, sanitize, and sanitize. There's no question that we all long for a return to pre-COVID times. I think about wars, the Great Depression. Some of those whom we serve have weathered worse. We are resilient people, and we will emerge from this crisis. I am deeply grateful for all that you are doing each day. As Governor Baker leads us through a gradual reopening of the economy in the weeks and months ahead, please know that EOEA is deeply committed to working with you and to keeping the health and safety of the older adults that we all serve. And so thank you for your commitment to the well-being of the 1.7 million older adults that we serve. And I also want to thank Dave for not forgetting the end of life piece. And yes, we should work on it. In fact, I'm, in my library here, I'm looking at a binder, and my entire family knows there's a binder that says Chen family documents, and it has the advanced directives, it has the healthcare praxis, it has the cemetery plots, it has all of the things all in one binder. And my entire family knows where it is, and we keep it updated. I also want to thank you for talking about and making sure that we think about equity, equitable access. I do feel that we are at an inflection point. I consider myself a woman of color, and certainly have felt racism, experienced racism and sexism throughout my life and throughout my career, have been called names I would rather not repeat. Black Americans are suffering right now. We have had a long history of systemic racism, and within EOEA, we are very intentional now about making sure that we talk about equity, that we make sure that for all policies, we talk about equity, equitable access, who is benefiting, who is not, just to build time and space so that we are all putting that on the table. And we are also intentionally making time so that we all internally educate ourselves, because we all have biases. I hold biases, and we all hold biases. And so we just want to make sure that we all know what biases we are holding, and that's all it is. And there's nothing wrong with them. It's just that we know, so that at least we're aware what they are. And so I want to thank you, Dave, for bringing that up. And so with that, let's go over to Becky. Dave, thank you again. It's a real pleasure to work with all of you. Job to have this network of people so committed to the well-being of older adults. And I think it's a real privilege. It's a real privilege for me to serve, and it's a real privilege for me to work with you.
Thank you so much, Secretary Chen. We appreciate your words of support and your encouragement while we continue to do this great work. And we also appreciate your willingness to be available. You've always been available to us as a network, and we appreciate that we can reach out to you at any time with questions or with concerns, and you are always very, very open to listening and working with us and brainstorming on ideas as to how we can make things better. So thank you so much, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now I would like to introduce Representative Ruth Balzer. Representative Balzer is currently the chair of the Joint Committee on Elder Affairs. Representative Balzer spent some time as a Newton alderman before joining the House of Representatives in 1999. She did some studies at the University of Rochester and also has her PhD from New York University. So it is my pleasure to introduce Representative Ruth Balzer.
Hi, thanks for the introduction, and thank you, David, and all of you for the invitation. I'm so glad to be here. So I'm going to say something that may sound extreme. I actually love Zoom. Everyone complains about it. Everyone, maybe it's just I'm a half full and not a half empty. I'm so grateful. I mean, I'm laughing, I'm joking about it, but I'm so grateful for it. I mean, this, I don't know how any of us would have survived this crisis without it. I think that we've all been able to continue our work and to stay connected with one another. And sometimes it's really transformative. I kind of forget, like on a day where I go from one meeting to another, I kind of forget that I haven't left my house. So I'm glad to be here with all of you. And I appreciate so much what all of you are doing. I was very glad, Dave, to hear the history you gave of that was interesting to me. This is the first session that I'm the House Chair of the Joint Committee on Elder Affairs. In the past, David and I had worked together on building the geriatric mental health line item. But aside from that, and of course I have to do a shout out for Newton's leader on aging, Jane Colino, who's here, and she's someone with whom I've worked for many years. But in a way that digging into the issues of aging was new to me this session, and there was a little bit of a learning curve at the beginning. I was excited and enthusiastic about this new era for me and this new issue. But then COVID-19 came, and I realized, to use the words the kids use, this became an awesome responsibility. Because I don't have to tell you, but this cruel virus is targeting aging adults. It's murdering people in our nursing homes, in our memory care units. It's vicious. So it's been a demanding period of time for us on the committee, trying to be helpful, trying to advocate. I'm very grateful for the leadership of Secretary Chen and for my partnership with Senator Jalen. And very grateful for what all of you are doing. I guess the way I've begun to think about this in terms of the COVID-19 crisis is that there are sort of two, I don't know, maybe this is overly simplistic, but I'm thinking of two distinct areas in terms of what aging adults are facing. There's the challenges that those who are living in our long-term care facilities are facing because they're at such high risk. And that a majority of the deaths in Massachusetts are from older adults who were living in long-term care facilities. But then I think of the other half is the world all of you are working in, which is how to address the issue the Secretary just addressed, which is the isolation that's coming from how to stay safe, since older adults who are not in congregate settings are at less risk because they are fortunately in their own homes, but they face other challenges, which is how to get the supports that all of you were traditionally supplying so that they can stay in their own homes and continue to live in the community. And I think that's where I want to make sure all of you know how very valuable what you're doing is, because older adults are at greater risk, we are at greater risk, and maintaining that connection to the community and those supports are just really crucial. I want to mention something, I guess, what's been on my mind, which is all this talk about the reopening. When Governor Baker, at the first press conference in which he announced the phased-in reopening, he said before he laid out who was going to be in phase 1, who was going to be in phase 2, what were the protocols going to be, what he said was, as he was lifting the stay-at-home advisory, he said loud and clear, anyone who's 65 and older should still stay at home. Anyone with underlying health conditions should still stay at home. I think it's important that those of us who are doing the work of working with aging adults, there's no reopening for older adults. Really, I think that's really important. And that's why I think I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to chat with you today, because you're the key to making that work. You're the key to making sure that as older adults, aging adults continue to be careful, certainly as the secretary just mentioned, going outdoors and doing things outdoors at a distance. But basically, people have to still take very serious precautions if they're older. And so I got alarmed, frankly. I told this to Dave yesterday. I called him, hearing about some of the the AARP Foundation's tax programs that were going up again. And I would defer to you. You're all the experts. But I got nervous about that there were plans to do the in-person tax counseling. You know, maybe I'm a worrier, but the idea of people in their 70s and 80s coming in, even though the disinfectant, all the careful. And so I just want to encourage all of you to draw on the creative energy that you've already demonstrated through this pandemic. I would think what would be really important is to help low-income seniors who don't have access to tablets, for instance, somehow. Perhaps that's something we can advocate for in the state budget. I would gladly lead that charge. Perhaps the local city councils and boards of select people can also talk about extra money to senior centers to make sure everyone has a tablet, and to make sure that those volunteers who are more computer savvy teach everyone how to use it. But one thing I can't stand, talk about ageist, is when people say, oh, old people just don't want to use any of this. We need to, and we need to share the technology, share the resources, and maybe call on some young college kids to teach some of the older people. You know, I don't know. But I just, my message today is that this is going to go on for a long time, and the people who are at greatest risk are our aging adults. And I'm just sick when I look at the numbers. And just to be clear, 95% of the deaths in Massachusetts are people age 70 and up. The average age of getting the virus is 52. The average age of dying from the virus is 82. So this is serious. The population that you've all devoted your lives to nurturing and supporting, you know, they're really in danger. And I think this is just a time to be creative, just to be really creative about how we stay connected, how we help people lessen the sense of isolation, get the supports they need, but to stay safe. Because this pandemic is like nothing any of us, I don't think, have ever experienced. So anyway, I'm grateful for the chance for you to, Dave said, sure, use the bully pulpit, say whatever you want. So that's my message to you. Again, I'm grateful to be here with you, and I do feel that I'm here with you. And thank you so much for all you're doing.
Thank you very much, Representative Foster. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. We will invite you to all of our Zoom calls if you would like. You enjoy Zoom so much. We're happy to have you. But thank you for reminding us of those statistics. And, you know, as Dave had mentioned earlier, it's not a race. And so we're not in any hurry to bring this most susceptible population back, into the community, but think of new ways to bring the services to people. So thank you very much. Thank you for sharing those thoughts with us. Now we have a video greeting from Senator Pat Jehlen, who is chair of the Joint Committee on Elder Affairs. Senator Jehlen is sending her remarks video. She couldn't make our meeting today. She has been serving for many years. She had some time in the House of Representatives and then has been in the Senate since 2005. Her current assignments include the Joint Committee on Elder Affairs, as well as the Joint Committee on Labor and Workforce Development, the Joint Committee on the Cannabis Policy, the Senate Committee on Ways and Means, Community Development and Small Businesses, Joint Committee on Revenue, and the Joint Committee on Ways and Means. So Senator Jehlen is certainly a busy woman, and we are pleased to now, hopefully Lynn will send us her remarks.
Not coming up to share.
But it is not coming up to share.
Sorry.
All
Try
right
this
then. Well,
again.
we are going to try to post that on our website, on the MCOA website, so everyone can see those remarks. Dave, do you have remarks?
When we get further along, Lynn, do you want to try it one more time, or is it not working?
It's just not coming up to share.
Okay, then why don't we
Not
move
even giving me
on?
the option.
Okay, then why don't we move on to the next portion of the agenda, which is to recognize the award winners. And I think that's ready to queue up. So go ahead and do that, Lynn.
Are we queuing that, or should we do the minutes first, Dave, that I have?
Oh,
on
I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
Problem. Okay, so we will certainly work on getting Senator Jehlen's message out to you, but we'll move along in our agenda. We do have minutes to approve from the last annual meeting. The minutes were posted on the MCOA website. This was a year ago, so we have to think back to when we were in person and we had our annual meeting. So I hope that you have taken a chance to look at the minutes, and I will entertain a motion to accept those minutes. And if you can state who you are when you make the motion, I would appreciate that.
Jody from Ludlow. I make a motion to accept the meetings from last year's annual meeting.
Thanks, Jody. Is there a second?
Terry Marciello, I second that.
Thanks, Terry. All those in favor of accepting the minutes from the last annual meeting?
Aye.
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 Dave?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This is the hardest part of a Zoom meeting, is taking a vote. I'm going to say that that motion has carried.
Becky,
see-
I'm sorry.
Yes.
It's Pacheco, I'm going
I-
to abstain because I was not at last year's annual meeting.
Thank you, Susan Pacheco. Susan is going to abstain.
I
Any
am
other
also-
abstentions?
Well, so
Gretchen?
instead of time out. Before we get to everybody listing off, please use the chat box that you see down on the bottom. Just tap on that. Message to all. If you're abstaining, or if for some reason you oppose, or if there's something you feel is missing, use that as the format, as opposed to trying to get 79 people talking in a Zoom format. So if you are abstaining, put that in chat. If you're opposing, put that in chat. And if you have additions or further comments, use that feature. We will record those as part of this minutes of this meeting.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so now we are going to move into, Lynn, how are we on the NISC Senior Excellence Awards? Fantastic. Hopefully everyone can see that. At the NCOA meeting last week, there were some awards given out, and a couple were given to our friends here in Massachusetts. So we wanted to make mention of those. You can see all of the winners up on the MCOA website, but we just wanted to pull out those highlighted here in Massachusetts. And so congratulations to our friends in Medfield and Roberta Lynch for the Community Development Leadership and Intergenerational Award winner for their Minds in Motion program, a cultural program. You can see on the slide there that they had some gatherings where they asked some big questions. And we offer our congratulations for this exciting award from NISC. And then our second goes out to Cohasset Elder Affairs, Nancy LaFaus, for another Community Development Leadership and Intergenerational. This was an honorable mention for their Community Summer Program, Intergenerational Community Dinner, to residents and non-residents of their center, the Wilcott Commons, which was a collaboration between senior center staff, volunteers, and high school students. So a great intergenerational program. So we offer our congratulations to Nancy and everyone at Cohasset Elder Affairs for that as well. In addition, there is no slide for this, so hold that video, Lynn. There is no slide for this, but I want you all to know that Dave Stevens was recognized at the MCOA conference, and Dave was awarded the NISC State Leader Award for his tireless dedication to MCOA. The award recognizes a state leader who keeps senior centers at the forefront of aging issues within their state region. So I want to just offer our great congratulations to you, Dave, for being the recipient of the NISC State Leader Award.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Woohoo!
Getting applause from everyone. So now we have a video. We're going to watch a little video clip from MCOA, the MCOA Trailblazer Awards.
Tim Getty has over a decade of experience working at the Iowa Area Agency on Aging. When the congregate meal program's participation declined 74% in 6 years, Tim led an innovative project titled the Encore Cafe. This pop-up cafe provides a salad bar, choice menu, table service, evidence-based health programming, and produce boxes in partnership with local food banks. Before the project, Lynn County served 35 participants. Within 2 years of implementation, the project served over 1,200 participants and over 17,000 meals. Amanda Lee founded Happy 50 Plus in 2018. It is a socially conscious and consumer-centric membership organization that helps 2,500 underserved older adult Chinese American and Asian American Pacific Islander persons in Southern California. Through Happy 50 Plus's online and in-person culturally competent activities, Amanda has successfully engaged this hard-to-reach population and has been making a positive impact on the lives of older Chinese Americans and Asian American Pacific Islanders in Los Angeles County, as well as their families and caregivers. Jill Hall, Chief of the Senior Centers and Community Services Division at the Baltimore County Department of Aging. She has been a community, state, and national senior center leader for more than 22 years. Jill currently leads the division of 20 senior centers, many of which have been nationally accredited by MCOA. Jill has served on the executive committee of MCOA's National Institute of Senior Centers for the past 8 years. During that time, she developed and led its Programs of Excellence Awards. This month, Jill will become the NISC Chair-elect. David Stevens is Executive Director of the Massachusetts Councils on Aging. David is an exceptional planner, visionary, lobbyist, and advocate. During his tenure at MCOA, it has grown from an agency with one telephone and 2 staff members to a multi-department organization on the leading edge of Massachusetts elder programming. David's advocacy has recently led to the creation of elder mental health outreach teams. David is adept at bringing agencies together to solve problems and arrive at consensus. He has worked with MCOA on many projects, including making the Aging Mastery Program and Benefits Checkup available to every senior center in the Commonwealth. Servicios de la Raza, Services of the People in Denver, Colorado. For over 40 years, Servicios de la Raza has offered culturally responsive and thoughtful programs to support older adults, their caregivers, and their families. For many, it is the lifeblood of the Latinx community in Denver, standing up against intolerance and discriminatory policies and regulations. Servicios continues to move forward through the uncertainties of the COVID-19 pandemic while shining a light on those impacted the most by its social and economic challenges.
Congratulations, Dave, and to everyone else involved in receiving one of those fantastic awards. We appreciate all that you do for us. So now we are going to move into the election portion of our meeting, and Dave has a few updates. So I'm going to turn things back over to him before we go into elections. Dave?
First, I just wanted to say thank you. I know that several of you on this phone call, Brian, Joanne, were instrumental in me receiving this award or being nominated for this award. I wanted to say thank you. But I can only accept it on behalf of all of MCOA. I appreciate my fantastic staff, the great board that we have, our stakeholders out in the field in terms of other organizations that we work in partnership with, including the Executive Office of Elder Affairs and the legislature, and also in terms of all of our members, 350 strong, that are active in working with older adults. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. I might have the award in my office, but I want to say thank you for all of you doing everything you do on a daily basis that I believe makes Massachusetts the forefront of the senior center network across this country. And we are fortunate that we have the support, we have the team, and we have the passion to make it the lives of 1.7 million older adults better. As I mentioned before, we're in extraordinary times. This is a new normal. We're learning how to use Zoom and Facebook and all sorts of stuff that I would just usually say, you know, Lynn, handle this for me because I'm not sure what I'm doing. But what I want to say is that taking votes, I appreciate that we learned how to take votes on minutes. We're going to be moving into the election portion of this. So we had to do some extraordinary things as we prepped for an annual meeting by Zoom. So we had to change up a few things. Usually I, as the executive director, do not get involved in this process. We usually have a task of a committee, a subcommittee that does a lot of this legwork on this, contacting regional reps, contacting board members, looking at the people who have applied to be board members, and vetting those people and getting them set up. So we usually have a task force that does that. But this year, because of the extraordinary times, we had to do a little bit of a change up. Most of you who are interested in being on the board have already submitted your name to the board for consideration. We had a list of about 24 people who are still interested in getting on the board. Openings, I'm sure, will be happening over this next year. Your names will be considered for those positions as they come forward. We tried to fill our positions by districts, and there's the Northeast, the Southeast, the Metro, the Central, and the West, to make sure that we stay within balance. We tried to make sure that people are from small communities, rural communities, larger cities, that we have a balance with that as well, since we know that the needs are unique between each of those. We try to tap people who are active in MCOA, that have been proven leaders in taking forward a task force or a work group and making and achieving goals that were established. So we have a deep, deep bench, and I really appreciate that, because a lot of what happens in our structure happens because of the volunteers that come forward from the people around this Zoom chat and also from the rest of the membership. So I want to say thank you again for that. I'm reminding you all that in the About Us tab, it lists the current leadership. It also lists the bylaws, which describe the jobs of everyone. There is board responsibilities that are listed there as well. And there's also the job description for a regional rep. I refer you to that. We welcome people joining us. The board is the fiduciary responsible party. They govern this agency. They are my boss. They are the folks who make the final decisions on everything. Though there are ways that the membership can overrule the board, and we also use the advisory council to be our dreamers, to be the people who set the agenda, for people who raise the bar, for people who help us target where our resources should be going. So each has a distinct different role. We work in tandem together. All regional reps become members of the advisory council, as are all board members. But the 17 members on the board have the fiduciary responsibility to MCOA, and that's what the first election will be. Again, not knowing how we would handle this election, especially if there was a floor nomination that would come up from somebody who wanted to be considered at this point in time. We put in the protocol that you needed to report in or to ask directly to me by 4 o'clock yesterday. Unless I'm mistaken, and I went through my spam filters and checked all my emails twice, I did not receive any people who wanted to be nominated from the floor. So from the list that you have, and Lynn, you can put the list up on the board now, we had 2 resignations from the board that is finishing up this June 30th. And the first of the resignations was Madeline Noonan, who was to be our president. Madeline has had to step off because she is now the Director of Community Services for the town of Barnstable. And we needed then to fill that role as well, because she was going to move up to be president at this meeting. And then we also had Cindy Hickey, who wasn't sure if she could make a full year commitment. So she asked to be taken off the roster as well. So we had 2 openings, again, about 24 people that had been asked to consider. We took a look at those criteria and we passed that off to the process, and 2 names were set forward. That did call for some extraordinary behind the scenes discussion, which again, I usually try not to be involved in, but given the new normal, we had to I had to intervene, and I want to just make sure that's part of the public record. And the first part of that was I personally asked Rebecca Becky to stay on 1 more year, given the transition, given how difficult things are going to be with COVID. You usually do 2 years and you rotate off. But with Madeline cycling off, and with our incoming vice president trying to get married sometime this year, still don't know what's happening with poor Marge, but we wanted to see if Becky would stay an extra year, and she graciously accepted that. So she is being put forward to be nominated for a 3rd year as president. This is not unprecedented. We have done it several times in the past. And when we've had to have a difficult time, Diane Cunningham, as you remember, was probably president for about 4 years. And go ahead to that slide, Lynn. You're on mute, so I don't know what you're saying. But so Becky has stayed on for that year. Marge will begin her tenure as our vice president. So that fills the leadership roles. We then had to fill some supportive leadership roles, And Susan Pacheco has volunteered to move forward into the secretarial position. She had been assistant treasurer. Janice Long has moved up to be the assistant secretary. Since both Cindy and Marge had left those two positions, we needed to fill those. That then created an opening in the assistant treasurer, and Mignon Murray has stepped up to be considered for that. We then had two at-large positions that opened up, and the nominating process revealed the names of Grace O'Donnell from the metro area and Nancy Hill. But I defer to Kathy, who is going to read this list for us.
All right. So the slate for the board of directors is as follows. President Becky Moriarty, West District. Vice President Marge McDonald from the Northeast. Past President Brian O'Grady, West. Secretary Susan Pacheco, Metro. Assistant Secretary Janice Long, Metro Central. Treasurer Emily Shea, Metro. Assistant Treasurer Mignon Murray, Metro. Conference Chair Jody Zepke, West. Legislative Jane Colino, Metro. Certification Joanne Moore, Southeast. At large Amy Waters, Central. At large Pam Hunt, Southeast. At large Terry Marciello, Northeast. At large Stacy Mincello, Northeast. At large Sharmila Biswas, Southeast. At large Grace O'Donnell, Metro. At large Nancy Hill, Southeast.
Again, there were no nominations from the floor that were recorded within the time frame that they were necessary, the protocol that was established. Thereby, there is only this slate to be considered. I turn it back over to Becky for a vote.
Okay, thank you. So I will entertain a motion for the secretary to cast one ballot for the slate as it was read.
So moved. Jane Colino, so moved.
Seconded by
Brian
Aguilar.
O'Grady, so second.
And thank you, Jane Colino and Mike Squindo. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
That was only 62 people. I'm waiting for no, I'm just kidding. I appreciate that. If anyone is going to abstain from this vote, again, please use the chat box. We will take note of that. Or if you are not in favor, please also send a quick chat. But I hear the majority is in favor, and so the board is set. So now we will move into the regional rep nominations. Dave, do you have commentary?
Just briefly that, again, the regional reps get filled throughout the year. We try to recognize and encourage people to get on at the annual meeting. But if you are interested as the year moves on, your schedule lightens up, you have some free time, you want to be part of our leadership team and play with us on that level, we welcome you. We can have multiple regional reps from the same region. You just end up dividing the workload amongst yourselves however you decide to do that. You have been incredibly vital over the last 100 days, and we've established those regional meetings to make sure that the line of communication is open and flowing between the frontline folks who are doing the work and MCOA, who is trying to provide you with some of the answers to those questions or best practices. So again, anything that anyone who is not listed on these regional reps give us a call or send me an email at david@MCOA online. Review the job description posted under About Us, and we will get you and invite you to join our advisory council meetings as they proceed throughout this FY21. Back to you, Beck.
Great. I will actually turn it over to Kelly Burke, who is going to read the slate of nominees for regional reps. Kelly?
Thank you, Becky. Good morning, everybody. The slate for the regional representatives, I'll start with the Northeast District, Sharon Mercurio Acton, Christine Shaw Arlington. Mystic Valley, Judy Luciano Wakefield. Nasaka, Carolyn Wynn Peabody, Pam Parkinson Danvers. Merrimack Valley, Pam Blaquier, Boxford, Teresa Woodbury, West Newbury, Colleen Ranshaw Fiorello, Georgetown, Bethany Lovelace, Dracut, Breanne Walsh, Rowley, Jean Bushnell, Billerica, Irene O'Brien, North Andover. Moving on to the Southeast District, Coastline, Jackie Cucci, Mattapoisett, Deborah Lee, New Bedford, Cynthia Walquist, New Bedford, Amy DiPietro, Dartmouth. Old Colony region. Oh, I'm sorry, Southeast, okay, Old Colony. Carol Hamilton, Marshfield, Andrea Priest, Middleborough, Michelle Brady, Plymouth, Gretchen Emmets, Pembroke. I have Cape and Islands next, but I will read the Cape and Islands, Judy Wilson, Orleans, Bristol County, Beverly Bish, Westport, Lori Pimentel, Swansea.
Do we want to go back to that one, South Shore?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that, Lynn.
That's all right.
South Shore, Linda Hayes, Situate, Susan Curtin, Norwell. Bay Path region, Trish Pope, Marlborough, Amy Beck, Hopkinton. Metro, Boston, Cambridge, Somerville, Chelsea, Revere, Winthrop, Melissa Carlson, Boston H. Strong Commission. Springwell, Navaniv Vogel, Belmont, Anne Marie Gagnon, Watertown. HESCO region, Lena Arena DeRosa, Westwood, Kathy Medeiros, Sharon, Kerry McManama, Walpole. Montechusett region in the Metro District, Deborah Goodsell, Clinton, Susan McCarthy, Pepperell, Kathy Shelp, Groton. In the Central District, the Elder Services of Worcester area, Judy O'Connor, Millbury, Louise Charbonneau, Holden, Eileen Clarkson, Barry. In the Central District Tri-Valley, Josie Dutil, Bellingham, Leslie Wong, Sturbridge. In the West District, Greater Springfield, Paula Dubord, Wilbraham, Michael Squindo, Agawam. West Mass, Leslie Hennessy, South Hadley. Highland Valley, Tina Gorman, Westfield, Joan Linehan, Southampton. Franklin County, Paula Betters, Irving. Berkshire County, Erica Sampson Giardenti, Adams, Jim Clark, Pittsfield, Polly Mann, Solonovich, Greater Barrington.
That's it.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
So that is the slate of regional reps. If you do not see your name on that list and you would like to, again, please just contact us at MCOA. As Dave mentioned, we are able to have more than one representative in the different regions. So we welcome more involvement from all of you. Dave, anything further before I call for a vote? Great. Okay, so there's the slate. I will entertain a motion for the secretary to cast one ballot for the slate as it was read.
Make a motion to accept the slate as read for officers. Or
Jody's
regional
like-
representatives, sorry.
Thank you, Jody from Ludlow. Is there a second? Brian O'Grady, are you seconding that? Brian O'Grady seconds that. Great, thanks, Brian. So I will, all those in favor, we're going to say yes.
Aye.
Thank you. Is there anyone opposed? If you'd like to abstain, please use the chat box. Great. That motion carries. Passing that motion.
Madam President,
Yes, sir.
I need to interrupt you.
Okay.
I believe there was a missing slide
Oh,
because Montechusets district was not mentioned, I don't believe.
It was.
It was? Okay.
Yes.
All right. I just wanted to make sure that Debbie and Susan were counted as part of that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
okay. Dave, do you have anything further before my closing remarks?
No, not at all.
Okay, great. Thank you. So thanks again, all. This is the wrap up to our meeting. And as president, Dave gives me a couple of minutes to share my thoughts with you. So I'm going to take that opportunity to do that now. I just want to thank you again for being here today. I know firsthand that the number of conference calls that we have been on over the last several months is far too many to count. And while some of us may enjoy Zoom, some of others of us do not. But I just want to thank you for all of the essential work that you've been doing during the pandemic. No one ever could have predicted that this would be the way we would be holding our annual meeting, let alone how we would be getting programs and services out to people. And no one ever could have told us that our senior centers would be closed, completely shut down. I think someone could have told us that, but I don't think that we as directors ever would have listened to them. We would have thought it could never happen, but here we are. And there you are, and you are still standing. And some days I'm sure that you feel like you're treading water so fast just to try to keep your head above the water line. And I will tell you that I am right there with you. The programs and services and the delivery methods that you have all come up with is nothing short of spectacular. You are still providing the same essential services to the most vulnerable population in the Commonwealth, and I commend you all. Thank you for asking questions, for sharing your concerns and your best practices on the regional calls that are happening statewide. With all of the information that we have gathered from those calls, we continue to prove that we are a strong and powerful network, and we do not let anything stop us from getting in the way of meeting the needs of older adults. We may not have the ability to open the doors to our centers, but we have been making wellness check-in phone calls, delivering groceries, medications, toilet paper, and other necessities. We've been Zooming programs, we've been providing transportation, handing out meals, and making sure that people are still able to connect to the programs and services that are the most essential. We have people who are upset that in-person bingo and billiards may not be happening for a while, but this is our opportunity to think outside the box and realize the true strength of our network. The network is responsible for continuing to meet these needs at a most difficult time. No one could have predicted that this pandemic would have completely shut down our operations, our state, the country, and in fact, the entire world, but it did, and we persevered. You did it. I know that you have faced days of frustration because I have too. of wanting to throw in the towel or at least pull some of the hairs out of your head. I know that not everyone has a strong sense of community leadership and may not have been invited to the table to talk about the reopening process that your cities and towns are working through. Don't give up now. We've come this far, and we have come this far together. On those days when you think it just can't get any worse, call your colleagues from another town, talk about it, share your ideas, share your concerns, laugh, cry, scream, brainstorm, do whatever it takes, but don't give up. There will be a day when we look back on all of this and ask, how did we survive? That day will come. I know it will. I want to thank the MCOA staff who has completely transformed their operations to help all of us do our jobs better out here in the community. MCOA has and always will be a valuable resource for information and assistance. Many thanks to all of the staff that have had to completely change their daily tasks and turn them into everything COVID-19 related. We appreciate all of your efforts. Dave, Betsy, Kathy, Kelly, Tara, Lynn, Sherry, Susan M., Susan C., and Patty. We appreciate your support and all of your advocacy. We also thank EOEA, who has been working tirelessly to bring us needed information and support. Secretary Chen and Assistant Secretary Carol Malone have been in this storm with us from the beginning, and we thank them for everything that they have done, along with all of our leadership from the state. So in closing, I want to thank you again for coming. I know that this is a really busy time for everyone. I want to thank you for allowing me to be the president of MCOA for one more year. It's humbling for me, but I appreciate the confidence that you have placed in me by entrusting me in this position for just a little bit longer. So hang in there, keep up the amazing work. Thank you for being here, and enjoy the rest of your day. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn. Jody Ludlow.
Thanks, Jody.
I second Susan Pacheco.
Thank you. Thanks all. Thanks for being here. Hang in there. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Becky.
Thanks, everybody.